Common Lectionary, Second Sunday of Advent, Year C, the second reading. Paul's letter to the Philippians, chapter 1, verses 4 to 6, and verses 8 through 11. Paul writes, "Brothers, I pray always with joy in my every prayer for all of you, because of your partnership for the gospel from the first day until now. I'm confident of this, that the one who began a good work in you will continue to complete it until the day of Messiah Jesus. God is my witness. How I long for all of you with the affection of Messiah Jesus. And this is my prayer, that your group attachment may increase ever more and more in knowledge and every kind of perception to discern what is of value, so that you may be pure and blameless for the day of Messiah, filled with the fruit of righteousness that comes through Jesus Messiah, for the glory and praise of God." My friends, we got to note that when reading the document called Philippians, one of 7 undisputed letters of the historical Paul, one of 7 documents that comes from the historical Paul, not just a person claiming to be Paul writing in his name, but actually from the historical Paul. But things are still very tricky. We got to admit to that. Contemporary biblical scholarship identifies that in the document we call Philippians, there are 3 distinct letters. Letter A, which is Philippians chapter 4, verses 10 through 20, which was a receipt for aid in which Paul acknowledges receiving a gift. Letter B, which is Philippians chapter 1, verse 1 to chapter 3, verse 1a, and chapter 4, verses 4 through 7, and verses 21 through 23. This, scholars say, was originally another letter in which Paul, having heard of problems in the Jesus group at Philippi, exhorts them to unity and to joy. And then some scholars say that there's even a third letter. Letter C, Philippians chapter 3, verse 1b, through chapter 4, verse 3, and verses 8 through 9. This is thought by some scholars to be yet another letter in which the historical Paul addressed problems caused by wandering Judaizer missionaries, screwing up his work and his gospel. Now, the biblical scholars who identify that there were 3 letters, 3 distinct letters, that got edited together, compiled together into the Philippians we all know and love, they date letters A and B probably from the time of 54 to 57 Common Era, and they date letter C sometime later, perhaps as late as 57 to 58 Common Era. All of these letters, they say, were edited together, compiled together into what we now call Philippians. They all come from Paul, according to these scholars, imprisoned in Ephesus. But there are differences of opinion among biblical scholars. Some other scholars identify that there's only 2 letters in Philippians, a combination of letter B and C into one, which these scholars call letter B, and they date letter A to 58 to 60 Common Era, and letter B to 62 Common Era, when Paul was imprisoned in Rome. Our Common Lectionary, Cycle C, Second Sunday of Advent, draws from letters B and C. Paul writes this letter from prison, maybe in Ephesus, maybe in Rome, maybe in the 60s, maybe in the 50s. But he writes to a Jesus group he founded and established, one that was very dear to his heart and that had brought him much joy. These Philippian Messianists live in a military colony, and they prize their Roman honor and status. They not only accepted the innovation or gospel that Paul had disseminated among them, but shared it in turn with others, and continued steadfastly in that ministry. This activity put them into a special and deeply emotional embedding relationship with Paul. Koinonia is the Greek word, meaning fellowship. And Latins later on would translate this to communio, communion. Their intense relationship with Paul and with each other expresses confidence that the God of Israel will bless and continue to bring their ministry into fruition. For this, Paul offers deep and enduring indebtedness to the God of Israel. An expression of indebtedness and ongoing praise, wrongly called the thanksgiving section of the letter, customarily follows after the introduction and greeting in most of Paul's letters. Next, Paul utters an intercessory prayer, rooted in his deep affection for these Messianic clients of his at Philippi. Please remember that our Mediterranean and Middle Eastern ancestors in the faith were anti-introspective. Not only did they not look inside themselves, they believed they couldn't look inside themselves. And so they judged people by external criteria. Paul gives evidence that he considers these Philippian Israelite clients of his to be totally and completely wholesome. He prays that their sticky in-group glue attachment, translated into our English versions as love, should increase in understanding and every kind of perception to discern what is of value and be pure and blameless for the day of Christ. Their commitment to promoting Paul's innovation, the gospel continues undeterred by reversal. Because of their commitment to promoting Paul's innovation, the gospel continues undeterred by reversals or negative experiences. Moreover, Paul's intense emotional sentiments expressed in the indebtedness section and prayer serve as in-group glue to strengthen the bond that already exists between him and his beloved Jesus group at Philippi. In the Common Lectionary's Sunday Gospel reading for the second Sunday of Advent, this Sunday, John the Dunker's preaching, reported by Luke, may well have been echoed by Paul in his evangelization and by his beloved Philippian Messianics as well. The good news needs to be disseminated. And who can do it better than those who understand and experience what it's all about?